Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Leadership Ready Room Chats. Coming to you about 10 minutes late today, but that's all right. I'm Brandon Jenkins. This is my co-host, Tom, brother Murray. And man, I think I'm just going to jump right into where we were just chatting behind the scenes, and we were kind of reflecting on last week's episode of this, which was to remind everybody basically what got you here, what made you successful and got you to the point of maybe it's the peak of your military career and now you're transitioning into civilian world. Maybe it was you became amazing at your job as an individual contributor. Maybe you're the best engineer at your company and now you're promoted and now you have the opportunity to lead a team of engineers. What all the things that you were really great at and the things that you did to make you successful in that position might not be the same things that you need right now to carry you into this next chapter, this next arena, this next opportunity. And so we were talking about that, and then we were talking about what else has been resonating with us lately, which is this idea of being able to discern when you're on a path and you're doing something and it's uncomfortable, being able to discern whether or not that discomfort is just an indication of growth and learning and all in the direction of the path you're meant to be on because it's aligned with your values, your passions, your purpose, the team's mission, the organizational values. It's all aligned, but man, something's uncomfortable about it. Being able to discern, okay, is that growth and learning and we need to stick to our guns? Or am I actually on a path that's not aligned and that is uncomfortable because maybe it just doesn't feel right. You're de-energized. You're doing things that you don't want to be doing. You shouldn't be doing. Yeah. So that's what we were just talking about behind the scenes. Brother was like, you should have been recording right this whole time. So I'm sure I missed something there, brother, but what's coming up for you right now?
This is a question that I've been asking myself on and off probably for 2 years. And I think sometimes I'm aware that I'm asking myself this question. And the question being, am I misaligned or am I uncomfortable? And sometimes it's probably been bouncing around my head in other words, where I'm not, that's how I'm approaching something, but I probably am. And so I love that you came up with this idea for today because it's, again, very top of mind. And I think it shows up probably for anybody transitioning. You gave some great examples. And so regardless of the type of transition, this is something that I expect comes up for a lot of people because for me anyway, as I've made some big transitions over the last few years, those are opportunities that I've taken to reflect about what I want, right? In most transitions, there's some choice. Do I accept the promotion? Do I quit this job and take another one? Do I start a business? There's some amount of choice in there. It's rare that you would make a transition of this magnitude with no say-so at all. And so what I have found myself doing as I've faced these big transitions is trying to reflect, and I've not done as good a job of it as I probably should have, trying to reflect about what really is important to me, right? And to keep it personal, I decided to retire from the military, to walk away from a career, and then start a business. And some of the things that I reflected about and that I decided were important to me were increased flexibility from an ability to show up for my family, something that I didn't have as much control over for 20 plus years in the Navy. And so now, because that was important to me, now as I experience these situations where I'm trying to figure out, am I misaligned or just uncomfortable, I often come back to those preferences, to those desires, to the things that helped motivate me to make the transition. And they've been very helpful for me. So um, that's kind of a long preamble there. But despite all that, I still question, maybe on a weekly basis, not daily, but quite frequently, I question, is this thing that I'm doing at both a macro and a micro level, right? Maybe specific to an action I'm about to take, and also big picture, is this the right path? That still is coming up for me on an almost weekly basis, and I doubt that I'm alone in that. And so candidly, it just feels good to share that. And so I'll flip it back to you. How often are you having thoughts like that? Because I know you're on a fairly similar transition journey.
Yeah, you're certainly not alone, because I'm right here with you and facing the same thing. And I, yeah, weekly, definitely. To answer your question, weekly, probably more than weekly. and and brother, you know that I've done a lot of identity work, like a lot of self-awareness, self-discovery, and I help people do that. Part of my business is to help other people do that. And more than weekly, I am questioning what, like, the path, right? I've come to look at it as more intentional. I'm being intentional with tuning in and noticing how these things are affecting my life, how they're affecting my energy levels. When I look at a calendar event and I look at it, and then what do I think? How does it make me feel? Or not make me feel, but what feelings come up when I look at it? Is it dread? Is it de-energizing? Or is it, no, okay, I'm excited about that. That's a good opportunity. That aligns with what I want to be doing, what I should be doing. That's just one example. Um, I have to imagine, and that's the entrepreneurial route, right? That's the route of, I transitioned out of the military, and instead of looking for a job, I've never sent a resume in or applied for any job anywhere since transitioning, right? So this is the entrepreneurial route. I have to imagine it's the same, similar for somebody looking for a job. And why do I imagine that? Well, partly because the leaders that I talk to and work with frequently have those same types of thoughts. Yeah, maybe they're applying for another job to work for somebody else. And at the same time, they're like, man, I just spent a big chunk of my life in this arena doing these types of things. And I'm transitioning now. I feel like this is a space where maybe I can figure out, like, what I actually want to be doing. What are the values I want in this next opportunity present for me to want to show up every day with the people that I'll be working with, doing the mission that I'm going to be doing there? How does that align with, like, what I'm really interested in? What I just feel or have the sense of, like, this is what I want to be doing, or I'm meant to be doing during this next chapter. And that applies whether you are going to work for somebody else, whether you're setting up your own business, and you can imagine, all right, what am I setting this up for? You know, where down the road, if I imagine this getting bigger, what are we doing? What mission are we doing? Who are we serving? Like, how are we impacting the way we want to impact? And it just so happens, brother, that time when you are in that shift from one arena to the next, that transition period, that space, I think we have to grapple with these things. So I am right there with you, and it's continuous. So uh, I'm right there with you. I don't know that it ever really stops, because I think if it stops, then you have hit autopilot, and now you got onto this new path, which seems real aligned, and then you're like, this is great. So you stop, and you're going and you're going, you're going for a while, and all of a sudden you realize you are on autopilot and you're not being intentional anymore. And before you know it, something could have changed. Things change. We evolve. Things change. And so I think that it's kind of a continuous, like, not 24/7, but like a lifelong being intentional with where you're choosing to invest your time and resources.
I love the way you framed that. And so now I think maybe I'd like to take us toward trying to figure out the difference between these two, right? Misalignment and discomfort, because I think we've both hit on it a little bit. they feel very similar. If I'm misaligned, there's going to be friction, there's going to be doubt. I may be low energy, right? Something might be dragging me down, feel like a burden. I may be resistant to it. I may question my path if I'm misaligned. And guess what? I feel like I can say all those same words about something that's just uncomfortable, that is very much aligned with what I should be doing, and that will result in growth if I stay the course. It's probably going to feel very similar. And so, uh, one of those things, the misaligned option, man, I got to find a way out of that. But if it's simply uncomfortable, but aligned and trending toward growth, well, I should stay the course. And so I think maybe it'd be helpful to try to parse that out and figure out how to tell the difference. If you have thoughts on it, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll keep talking.
Well, I'll just say one thing real quick, and then I'll shoot it back to you. Is I think in order to be able to discern, you have to have intentionally or be intentionally, there's that word again, intentional, reflecting on what is important to you, what is important to the team that you're leading, what is the mission, what is the purpose. I think you have to spend some time reflecting on at least having some idea of what's important, what you value, and what the vision of what direction are you going. Like, you don't have to know exactly where you want to end up, because I think that too many things are out of your control to actually, I envision this and this is exactly how I want it to be, and then I get to that exact spot, right? I just think that too many things are out of your control. But I think that a necessary precursor to be able to discern this is to have a vision, and that vision is tied to values, passions, purpose. And then I'll pause there and see what you got, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the discomfort side, I feel very similarly that there's got to be meaning. There's got to be a tie back to the purpose, to the values, and that has to be the result of that intentional work you're describing. I also think there's got to be forward progress at some point, right? Not every second, not doesn't have to necessarily be massive. But if you've identified this path, some objective, some goal that you're working toward, and you're uncomfortable, you're experiencing discomfort, and moving forward, you can tie it back to meaning, to purpose, and you're able to start measuring some progress, however small it might be. Well, it's probably more likely discomfort. On the flip side, there is, and I think I lost video, but I'll keep chatting. I think if there is no ability to measure progress, and most importantly, right, as you said, no ability to tie this back to purpose, that's when we should probably be concerned. And do we just, shut it all down? No, I don't think so. You should probably tweak it, iterate. Hey, I think that's one way, a practical way to try to tease out whether or not it's a misalignment or discomfort. Can I tweak this thing that I'm doing a little bit to get it into alignment, to align with purpose, and to start making progress? Or every way I turn this over, it just feels bad. And if it's the latter, it's probably misalignment. I'll pause there to see what else you've got, because I also think there's a dangerous middle ground.
Yeah. Middle ground, dude. I can't wait. Can't wait to get into that. Right. So there's always gray, and context always matters. Yeah, I loved how you described that, brother. It's that meaning piece, that direction that I'm going, that vision that's tied to the things that I value, the people I value, the activities I value, what I believe I'm uniquely meant to be doing, right? When you combine all of my values, passions, skills. Okay. And then I have a vision that's kind of based on that. Not necessarily I want to be doing X, but like this is kind of like the direction I want to be moving in? And then is the discomfort tied to learning something new in service of that? Doing something new? Maybe it's either learning, maybe I'm doing something, maybe I'm trying to help my teammates learn to do something. Maybe I'm trying to help them all move in that direction and it was a pivot. And so that's uncomfortable, a organizational change or something. Is it uncomfortable because of things that are just universally uncomfortable because we don't know it and we're learning it? That's uncomfortable. We've been doing things one way for a long time. We're pivoting, we're changing. That's uncomfortable. As long as we can tie it to meaning and purpose and that vision, I think then it becomes, all right, I'm willing to tolerate this discomfort because I believe that direction we're going, that the benefits of that outweigh the discomfort costs of whatever it is you're in the middle of right now. And I think it also requires a little bit of a mindset of, well, it does, a growth mindset. If you have a mindset that if you're not good at it, you're not going to do it. If you don't know it, what's the point of learning it? I made it this far. I've been successful my whole career. I made it this far. Why should I change? Why should I adapt? Why should I, consider other ways of doing things? If you don't have if you have that mindset versus a growth mindset where it is, yeah, I mean, I'm super confident. I know I've achieved a lot and I've been successful. However, I don't know everything. And I know that if I'm going somewhere new and learning something new, then it's uncomfortable to have to learn that. And so I'm willing to push through that discomfort. I'm willing to learn something new, try something new, pivot when it makes sense because it's tied to that deeper meaning, that vision aligned with purpose, that direction that you want to be going. So that's kind of how I think about it. And in practice, it requires setting aside some time to reflect on those things, to get feedback from people, to bring in other perspectives. And so I guess before I keep going on that thread, I think there's two areas, brother. You mentioned one is like the middle ground, the gray area. And then the other is, okay, what can we as leaders do to help us be able to discern, is this uncomfortable but aligned, or uncomfortable and not aligned, or what?
Yeah, I think, I think the middle ground is basically a misclassification, right? Or that's why it would occur. When I stick with something that is not aligned, that I'm not aligned with, that's not aligned with my business, with my purpose, with the organization, and I call it growth, that I think is one example of the middle ground. And the other is not being able to push through the discomfort for something that otherwise is aligned, that will keep you heading in the right direction. And I think this occurs for me. I think ego is probably the number one thing that causes me to get stuck here and be unable to really see clearly. And I'm probably not the only leader out there who's had some success in past leadership roles who then tries something new. And you just used the phrase a minute ago, or we're saying something along the lines of, I've been successful in the past. And I think that ties into ego. Darn it, I'm a good leader. I can solve this problem. I can motivate the team. We can overcome this. Pick your platitude. That for me is the single biggest danger or trap here. I think fear also is a major motivator. Um, if I stop this, that the whole house of cards will crumble. I'm scared of that as an outcome, so I'm going to push forward, maybe in the wrong direction. And then I think that the third would be like an external pressure of some kind. Uh, could be from a family member, could be from a friend, could be from a colleague. I think all of those things together, though, often don't serve us well. And so it is important to be able to think through this, right? Because you don't want to get stuck in this middle ground. I don't want to get stuck in this middle ground. And so I think, uh, man, something you're real good at is thinking about whether something is draining you or developing you. And you use the word draining, or man, I have this thing on my calendar. This came up a few weeks ago. I have this thing on my calendar and I'm dreading it. The idea of it is draining to me. That's a sign. And I think it's something that we have to honor and think through. Is it draining me because I'm just tired right now? But if I reflect on it, it's still going to move the needle in the right direction? Or is it draining because I don't want to do this and it's not aligned with me? I think the others, the other question to ask yourself, another question would be, kind of a look in the mirror. Hey, if I try to cut out all the noise, am I avoiding growth or am I ignoring misalignment? And I think just naming it and forcing yourself to candidly think through it, that may be enough to get yourself out of that middle ground and make a decision. You have other thoughts, Brandon, on ways to think through this and try to parse it out?
Well, what you just brought up with the middle ground and the ego, ego, it isn't good. It's not bad. Um, it's just like kind of how you see yourself. I'm sure that there's an actual definition of it, but when I think of ego, I just think of this is how I see myself. This is how I picture I'm supposed to be in order for me to feel like I'm who I want to be. Or we could go academic here, but I think what it means for me when trying to discern if something aligns. I'll give you a concrete example. Is I have a player inside of me that's very strong, a player in my blueprint, and it's harmony. And I instinctively and naturally I assess a situation, I assess a group. The natural tendency for me is to see where we can make sure that we create, maintain, keep harmony. And when I notice that harmony is maybe getting out of whack, I have an instinct to want to kind of get us back into harmony. That is a really strong player in my blueprint. Okay. I'm sure the listener and you, brother, right? I'm sure that you can think of situations in your lifetime, in your professional career, probably at home too, where something had to be done, a decision had to be made, a course of action had to be taken that was going to ruffle some feathers and could potentially be seen by somebody with such a strong player as harmony as, wow, this is disharmonizing. This is going to create friction. Okay. That's going to be really draining for me to have to make that decision that I know, let's say I got 10 folks and I know 4 of them are going to be, this is not what we want to do, but I know I can see the alignment. I know it's taking us in the direction we need to go. We don't have any other perspectives that I think would be a better approach. So we're going to go with it. And I got 60% of the team also, right, thinks we should go. And so we're going to make this decision now. And I know that there's going to be there's not going to be harmony for a little bit. My initial instinct is to what else can we do here? How else might we approach this where maybe we, instead of 4 dissenters, we only have 1 or none? And then, so that in that case, that thing is de-energizing for me. This is uncomfortable for me. And now I have to be able to discern, do we still move forward with that or not? Is it aligned or not? Am I just uncomfortable because on an ego level, on a personal self-awareness level, I'm violating one of my players or not? And so that is what came up for me. And I have other examples, right? If you look at other values you might hold and tendencies you have, right? How do you normally react in those types of situations? All those natural things, those are all going to come into play, and they may feel de-energizing, draining, terrible, like heavy, all of that, and still be the right answer, the right direction to travel. I'll pause there for a second, brother.
Yeah, I mean, this is gold. I love the example, and I think one thing that we haven't talked about at length yet is how other people play into this. And because even when I ask myself these questions, when you ask yourself these questions, when you try to parse this out, it is tough to see it clearly and objectively. You're in the middle of it. You, the leader, you, me. Um, and we've got identity wrapped up in this, and it can be very easy for me to rationalize both sides, to rationalize that something that feels uncomfortable is not aligned because I'm trying to avoid, as you said, I'm trying to harmonize, whether it's internally or externally. So I've done it. I've rationalized something that's uncomfortable as something I shouldn't do. Similarly, I've very much rationalized some very big misalignment issues I've had as, no, it's just uncomfortable. I'm going to push through. Darn it, I'm a leader. I'm good at this. And in both cases, having some outside perspectives has been the missing piece for me. To somebody to ask me those hard questions and challenge me on the answers, right? Somebody that knows me, somebody that has heard me maybe 6 months, 12 months, 3 years ago share a vision. And then as I express some frustration about something, having that advisor, that mentor, that that trusted partner ask me, "Are you sure?" Right? And as that narrative gets challenged, that for me has been the biggest single reason that I've been able to work through these issues, and I've got a lot more to work through, and I'm fortunate to have my personal board of advisors, my peer leaders in Green Squad, to help me find this clarity. And yeah, I'll stop there because that's kind of I don't know how to top that, because that, like I said, for me has been the most critical uh, support.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to top that. I'll tell you that much. I'll just double click on it. Having outside perspectives, getting out of your own head, getting out of your own way is probably the single most beneficial tool a leader has in order to make these discerning decisions. And I cannot overstate the value of having Green Squad, a group like that over the years, 6+ years, that we have just been able to help each other through these exact things we're talking about. I mean, you and I are in Green Squad together, so we are talking about it together. And then this Saturday, we're going to jump on the call, and we have other leaders in a group that we are just there for each other every week to talk about these things. And the other people in the room matter more than the plan, the perfect plan, more than all the introspection in the world. Having other people in your corner, the right people, matters more than that perfect plan or that perfect piece of knowledge, because we're human and we aren't perfect. And even when we know the exact steps to take, we don't take them. And that's just a natural part of being human. And having other people, other humans, to be in the room with you who get it, who care about you, and who are going to help you see a different way, get out of your own head, step up on the balcony. That is incredibly valuable, the most valuable tool I've had in the last 6.5 years, for sure, and beyond. Because even before Green Squad, I can I can certainly think of times throughout my entire life where having other people around to like bounce ideas off of and to help me see these, what was before unseen. I can think of numerous examples even before having a dedicated group like this. So I know that 44 years, I'll be 45 in 2 weeks, my entire life that I can remember, and started interacting with people and making these types of decisions, that has been the single most beneficial thing for me too. Anything before we sign off, brother?
No, this has been a good one, Jenks. Take us home.
Yeah. Listener, thank you for joining us today live or after the fact, watching the replay, listening to the replay. If any of this stuff's resonating with you, finding the right room, the right people, talking about these topics that we bring up week after week in Leadership Ready Room, please reach out to me, reach out to Tom. We would love to continue the conversation with you and see if we can potentially help you find the right room or point you in the right direction. So until next time on Leadership Ready Room Chats, have a good one.